Welcome to Rene's Romance Stories. This is The Wrong Mate. The first time my boyfriend's wolf rejected me, it didn't snarl. It whimpered. A thin, broken sound, sharp enough that everyone in the room froze like it had sliced straight through bone. I remember thinking, oh, that's new. Because I'd always imagined rejection would be loud, violent, dramatic. Something you could brace for. Not quiet, not pitiful. Not happening while his hand was still warm around mine. If you believe fate can be cruel and creative about it, go ahead and subscribe. Because this is the story of how I loved the wrong man, survived the wrong pack, and found out that being rejected doesn't mean you were unworthy. Sometimes, it means you were never meant to stay small. Chapter 1. The Girl Everyone Loved. I was the girl people described with words like easy and bright and good for morale, which, translated from pack speak, meant she's pleasant to have around and won't cause trouble. I leaned into it. I smiled when rooms went quiet. I brought extra food to gatherings. I learned how to laugh when someone forgot my name, even after months of dating their friend. Sunshine was survival. Sunshine kept you wanted. My name is Lyra Ashford. I'm 26 years old, and until recently, I thought love was something you earned by being soft enough to fit wherever someone placed you. I lived in Brightfall territory, human city on the surface, pack politics humming just beneath it like bad wiring. Wolves in tailored coats, council meetings disguised as charity galas, bloodlines discussed over wine glasses instead of fires. And then there was Evan Mercer, my boyfriend. My mistake. Evan was charming in a way that made people forgive him before he'd even apologized. The kind of man who shook hands like he meant it, smiled like he belonged anywhere, and always smelled faintly of cedar and ozone. Clean, comforting, right. At least, I thought so. He wasn't an alpha. Not officially, but everyone treated him like a future one. He had the look, the posture, the quiet confidence of someone raised knowing doors would open. And me? I was the girl he chose. Not fated, not marked, just chosen. I don't believe in letting destiny run my life, he'd told me once, mouth curved against my temple. I want you. That's enough. I'd believed him. I'd built a whole future out of those words. We lived together in a sunlit apartment overlooking the river. I cooked, he pretended he could. We argued about music and forgot about it by morning. He kissed my forehead when he thought I was asleep. I didn't know much about wolves back then, about bonds and scent matching and the way fate lurked like a patient predator. I knew only that Evan held my hand in public, and that meant something. The night it all fell apart started like a celebration. Brightfall was hosting a formal pack gathering, one of those polished events meant to remind everyone how civilized we were now. Glass walls, string lights, a band that played covers just soft enough to pretend this wasn't a political meeting with hors d'oeuvres. Evan squeezed my fingers as we walked in. "Relax," he murmured. "They already love you." I smiled, because that was my job. People greeted me warmly. Too warmly. Long looks, soft pats on my arm. A few expressions flickered, something like pity, gone before I could name it. I should have noticed. I always notice things too late. We were halfway through the room when the air shifted. Not metaphorically, physically. It was like the temperature dropped 10 degrees in a single breath. Conversations faltered. Wolves straightened, shoulders squaring, instincts snapping to attention. And then she walked in. I didn't know her name then, but my body reacted before my mind did. Skin prickling, heart stumbling, lungs pulling air like I'd been running. She was beautiful in a way that didn't ask permission. Dark hair pinned back from a pale, composed face. Posture perfect. Eyes sharp and knowing. She wore black, of course, like the universe enjoyed symbolism. The room parted for her. And Evan stopped walking. His grip tightened around my hand. Too tight. I turned to him, already smiling, ready to make a joke. "What? Did someone bring better snacks?" He didn't answer. His pupils were blown wide. His jaw clenched so hard I could hear his teeth grind. Then his scent changed. Sharp, panicked, wrong. The sound that came from his chest wasn't human. It was small, broken. A whimper. I felt it before I understood it, the invisible snap, like something tearing loose inside me. A cold rush through my veins. A hollow ache blooming right under my ribs. The woman met Evan's gaze. Recognition flashed across her face. Certainty. And just like that, I knew. Not because anyone said it, but because every wolf in the room went silent. Because fate had arrived. Evan finally looked at me then, and the expression on his face wasn't love. It was horror. His voice cracked. He swallowed. "Lyra, I didn't know she'd come back." Come back. That word echoed. Returned. Retrieved. Reclaimed. I laughed softly because the alternative was screaming. "Come back from where?" I asked. "Did she forget her coat?" He flinched, and that's when his wolf pulled away from me completely. No growl, no anger, just rejection. Clean. Absolute. Public. The woman, his true mate, though no one had said it yet, stopped a few feet away. Her gaze slid over me without interest. Not cruel. Dismissive. As if I were a placeholder she'd finally outgrown. Evan released my hand. Not because he wanted to, because his body wouldn't let him keep holding mine. The space between us felt enormous. Someone whispered my name. Someone else looked away. And I stood there, smiling too hard, while my world collapsed with perfect manners. I didn't run. Not yet. I lifted my chin, straightened my shoulders, and did what I'd always done best. I stayed pleasant. Because nothing says dignity like being rejected in front of an entire pack and still thanking fate for the lesson. I just didn't know yet that this was only the beginning, and that the alpha who would tear my life open and remake it was already watching, from far beyond Bright Falls borders. Chapter 2. What rejection feels like in public. The thing no one tells you about rejection is that it's not emotional first. It's physical. It starts in the bones. At first, I thought I was just cold. The room was still warm, music still playing, glasses clinking like nothing monumental had just happened, but my fingers went numb anyway. Then my toes. Then the ache slid inward, settling behind my sternum like something heavy and wrong had taken up residence there. I inhaled. The air tasted thin. My scent, my presence, was fading. I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I just knew that people stopped looking directly at me. Their gazes slid off, unfocused, like my edges had blurred. Someone brushed past me and flinched. That hurt more than I expected. Evan stood frozen, staring at the woman across the room like she'd rewritten gravity. His wolf was in chaos. I could smell it now, sharp and panicked, spiking the air like static. I'd loved that scent once. Now it made my stomach twist. "Evan?" I said quietly. My voice sounded far away, even to me. "Say something." He blinked, like he'd forgotten I existed. Then he looked around, at the crowd, at the watching pack members who were pretending very badly not to stare. And finally, he looked at me. "I didn't plan this," he said. A murmur rippled through the room. I laughed again. It came out wrong, too high, too brittle. "Wow," I said. "That's comforting. I was worried this was intentional." "Lyra." He stepped closer, then stopped, his body jerking like it had hit an invisible wall. His face drained of color. "I can't." He tried again. His hand hovered inches from mine, trembling. The rejection slammed deeper. Pain flared under my ribs, sharp and nauseating, like something was being pulled out of me by force. My knees buckled. I caught myself on the edge of a table, knocking over a glass. Wine splashed across the floor, dark and dramatic. Perfect. "I'm sorry," Evan said quickly. Too quickly. His eyes flicked to the woman, Isolde, someone whispered behind me, and then back to me. "I swear I didn't know she was alive. I thought, everyone thought." "That she was dead?" I finished for him. Silence. "Oh, so that was worse." A pressure built behind my eyes, but no tears came. Just heat. Dizziness. My heartbeat thudded erratically, like it couldn't remember the rhythm anymore. People were backing away now. I smelled it. Instinctive avoidance. Wolves stepping back from something broken, unstable, unfinished. Rejected. I pressed my palm flat to my chest, trying to ground myself. My skin felt wrong, too sensitive, like my nerves were exposed. Evan noticed. Panic sharpened his features. "You need to sit down," he said. "You're not well." I stared at him. "Not well," I repeated. "That's what we're calling it?" "This is dangerous," he whispered. "Your scent, it's destabilizing. You shouldn't be here." The words hit harder than the rejection. "You brought me here," I said. "You held my hand when we walked in." "I didn't know," he insisted. "If I had known, what?" I asked softly. "You wouldn't have loved me?" He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but that was enough. The ache in my chest turned hollow, like something had collapsed inward. My heartbeat slowed, then skipped entirely, sending a wave of nausea rolling through me. I tasted metal. Behind Evan, Isolde finally spoke. "Evan?" Her voice was calm, certain, the voice of someone who had never doubted where she belonged. His shoulders straightened instantly. "I'm here," he said, without looking away from her. I felt the final snap then. Not dramatic, not explosive, just final. The bond, whatever fragile thing had existed between us, shattered completely. Heat drained from my body. My hands shook violently now. The world tilted, lights blurring into long streaks. I laughed again because apparently I was committed to the bit. "Congratulations," I said, addressing no one in particular. "You found her." Evan turned back to me, guilt flickering across his face. "Lyra, I don't want to hurt you, but this isn't a choice. She's my mate." "And I was what?" I asked. "A phase?" "A mistake?" someone whispered nearby. Evan flinched, but he didn't contradict it. "I cared about you," he said. "I still do." My knees finally gave out. Strong hands caught my arms. Someone from the pack, I didn't recognize who. Their touch burned. My skin screamed in protest, instinct recoiling from unfamiliar contact. "I think you should leave," Evan said softly. "For your own safety." That was it. That was the moment something inside me went cold and clear. "I'm not safe here," I said. He nodded, relief flooding his face. Not concern, relief. I pulled my arms free and straightened on shaking legs. Every movement hurt now. My body felt like it was rejecting itself, muscles weak, senses overstimulated, scent flickering like a dying flame. I scanned the room one last time. No one met my eyes, except Isolde. She regarded me thoughtfully, not unkindly, not apologetically, just finished. I walked out. Each step felt like I was leaving pieces of myself behind, fragments scattered across polished floors and polite lies. By the time I reached the street, the night air hit me like a slap. I bent over, gasping, retching dryly as pain ripped through my abdomen. My vision tunneled. The world smelled wrong, too sharp, too loud, too alive. Something was very wrong with me. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and laughed weakly. "Okay," I muttered to the empty sidewalk. "So this is rock bottom." I didn't know yet that rejection didn't end when you left the room. It followed. It hunted. And far beyond Bright Falls lights, an alpha I'd never met lifted his head. Because somewhere in the dark, a broken scent had just called to him. Chapter 3. Leaving Bright Fall doesn't mean escaping it. I didn't go home. Going home implied permanence. It implied I might stay long enough to unpack what had just happened, maybe curl up on the couch Evan and I bought together, and cry into the throw pillow he insisted was a neutral color. No, I kept walking. Bright Falls streets were still alive, bars glowing, laughter spilling onto sidewalks, humans unaware that a supernatural humiliation had just detonated inside one of their carefully curated buildings. My phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. Evan. I didn't answer. Each step away from the venue felt heavier, like my body was dragging something invisible behind it. My legs trembled. My skin prickled with cold despite the mild night air. My heart kept stuttering, skipping beats like it couldn't decide whether it wanted to keep going. By the time I reached the bus terminal, I was shaking hard enough that the ticket kiosk asked if I needed assistance. "Just leaving," I told it. "As far as possible." I bought the first ticket out. No destination preference, no plan. Just distance. That should have been enough. It wasn't. The terminal smelled wrong. Not dangerous yet, but off. Underneath the usual sense of oil and stale coffee was something sharp and bitter, like burned fur and old blood. I hugged my jacket tighter around myself and told my brain to calm down. Paranoia was a reasonable response to public rejection, right? That didn't mean I was in danger. I found a seat near the back, pressed my forehead to the cool glass, and closed my eyes. My body disagreed violently. Pain flared through my abdomen, sudden and breath-stealing. I gasped, curling forward, arms wrapped tight around myself as heat surged under my skin. Sweat dampened my hairline. My senses spiked, too sharp, too loud. Someone coughed 3 rows away. It sounded like a gunshot. My scent Whatever fragile thing it had become, spilled out of me uncontrolled. I couldn't stop it. Panic made it worse. The air around me vibrated with it, raw and unshielded. I tasted fear. Mine. "Get it together," I whispered. "Just hold it together." A man across the terminal looked up, then another. Their gazes lingered too long. I stood abruptly, dizziness slamming into me. The floor tilted. My vision narrowed. I didn't wait for the bus. I walked out into the night instead. Bright Falls city edge bled into wooded outskirts quickly, trees pressing close, streetlights thinning. I followed a cracked sidewalk that led toward nothing in particular, breathing shallowly, trying to keep my scent down like I'd once seen Evan do during tense pack situations. It didn't work. The air shifted behind me. Footsteps. Too light, too synchronized. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. A low laugh carried through the trees. "There," a voice murmured. "You smell that?" My stomach dropped. Rogues. I broke into a run. Branches clawed at my arms as I veered off the path, heart pounding, lungs burning. Pain flared with every step, my body screaming that it couldn't handle this, that I was breaking apart from the inside out. Another laugh, closer now. "Easy," someone said. "She's unstable. Don't spook her." That was worse. I tripped over a root and went down hard, the impact knocking the breath from my lungs. Before I could scramble up, something heavy landed nearby. Not touching me, testing. A shape moved at the edge of my vision, too fast, too deliberate. My throat closed. "Please," I said hoarsely. "I don't have anything you want." "Oh," the voice replied, amused. "You do." I squeezed my eyes shut. And somewhere, far beyond Bright Falls' borders, deep in the Valecrest Highlands, Ronan Valecrest froze, mid-step.
Ronan. The forest went silent. Not the natural kind. Not the patient, breathing quiet of night. This was wrong. Ronan lifted his head slowly, every instinct flaring hot and immediate. His wolf surged forward, claws scraping against his control. There. The scent hit him like a blow to the chest, raw, broken, female, unclaimed, and wrong in a way that made his blood burn. He staggered, one hand bracing against a tree trunk as the sensation ripped through him, sharp, violent recognition, followed by something colder. Anger. Fear. "Mine," his wolf snarled. Ronan clenched his jaw. No. It had been years since his wolf had reacted like this. Years since fate had taken something from him and left only echoes behind. This scent was unstable, fractured by rejection, bleeding power it shouldn't have had access to yet. It carried pain, humiliation, and a desperate, flaring will to survive. And beneath it, potential. "Track," he ordered, already moving. The pull was unmistakable, directional, urgent. Someone was hunting her. And Ronan Valecrest did not tolerate thieves.
I didn't know his name yet. Didn't know that the alpha barreling through the dark toward me was older, colder, and infinitely more dangerous than the men circling closer now. All I knew was that the air shifted again, this time violently. A roar split the night. The rogues froze. So did I. Whatever was coming wasn't subtle. It wasn't kind. And it was moving very, very fast. Chapter 4. The Alpha Who Came Like a Storm. Lyra. The roar didn't sound like an animal. It sounded like the earth tearing open. The rogues recoiled instinctively, bodies snapping toward the sound with sudden fear sharp enough to taste. One of them swore under his breath. "That's not—" he started. Whatever he was about to say died with a wet, choking sound. Something hit him from the side, hard enough that his body lifted off the ground and slammed into a tree. Bones cracked, bark exploded outward. I screamed. Another rogue lunged toward me, panic replacing amusement. "Grab her, now!" I scrambled backward on my hands, palms burning, vision blurring as my body betrayed me completely. Heat and cold warred under my skin, my scent flaring wildly, uncontrollable. Then he was there. Not human, not wolf, something in between, moving with terrifying precision. A massive form burst through the trees, dark fur streaked with silver moonlight, eyes burning molten gold. The alpha didn't hesitate. He didn't posture. He ended things. He tore into the second rogue with ruthless efficiency, claws flashing, teeth sinking in deep. The sound of it was sickening. Final. Blood sprayed across leaves and dirt, hot and metallic. I pressed myself against the ground, heart hammering so hard I thought it might kill me outright. The third rogue tried to run. The alpha caught him mid-stride, jaws closing around his throat. There was a sharp crack, and then silence. The forest exhaled. I shook violently, my body curling in on itself as the adrenaline crashed. Pain surged everywhere at once, head, chest, limbs, like my nervous system had been flayed raw. I felt him turn toward me. Every instinct screamed at once. Predator. Power. Alpha. I tried to crawl away. My vision tunneled. Darkness crept in from the edges. "Easy," a voice said, deep, commanding, rough with restraint. "Don't move." His voice grounded me just enough to stop scrambling, but my body didn't listen. A violent tremor ripped through me, and I gagged, bile burning my throat. My voice broke. "I can't—" I didn't finish. The world tilted sharply, and I collapsed.
Ronan. She went down hard. Ronan crossed the distance in 2 strides, already shifting back, bones snapping into place with practiced brutality. He dropped to one knee beside her, hands hovering just above her shaking form. Don't touch her yet. Her scent hit him full force now that he was close. Broken, rejected, unshielded. And beneath that, fate. His wolf surged violently, snarling possessively, furious at the damage already done. Mine. No, Ronan growled aloud, forcing control down like a blade. Not yet. Her skin was clammy, too cold. Her pulse fluttered weakly under his fingers when he finally allowed himself to check it. Unstable. If he didn't act quickly, she'd crash completely. Damn it, he muttered. He shrugged off his jacket and wrapped it around her without hesitation, grounding her scent as best he could. The fabric absorbed some of the chaos, the worst of her uncontrolled flare. She whimpered faintly, instinctively curling toward the warmth. His chest tightened painfully. She shouldn't smell like this, he said quietly to the empty forest. They did this to you. Ronan scanned the surroundings, ensuring no other threats lingered. The rogues lay broken and still. Good. He turned back to her. Her face was pale, lashes dark against flushed cheeks, lips parted slightly as she struggled for breath. There was no mark on her, no claim. Unclaimed. And hunted. His jaw clenched. You're coming with me, he said firmly, already lifting her into his arms. Her body was light, too light. As he stood, her scent shifted again, something old stirring beneath the damage, a resonance that made his wolf shudder. Not wrong, never wrong, just late. Ronan looked down at her unconscious face, moonlight silvering her hair. "You have no idea what you are," he murmured. And for the first time in years, fate didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a promise.
Lyra. I drifted in and out of awareness. Warmth surrounded me, steady movement, a heartbeat, strong and even, somewhere near my ear. I didn't feel afraid. That surprised me. When I cracked my eyes open briefly, all I saw was a dark blur and a hint of gold, eyes watching me with fierce focus. "Stay," the voice said, low and steady. "I've got you." I didn't know him, didn't know where we were going, but exhaustion crushed every question flat. I let the darkness take me. Chapter 5. Temporary is still owned. I woke up thinking I was dead. Not dramatically, no tunnels of light or life reviews, but in the very practical sense that my body felt wrong. Too heavy, too light, like I'd been rearranged without my consent. The air smelled different, clean, cold, pine and iron and something darker underneath it. Ozone, maybe? Power. I tried to move. Pain flared everywhere at once. I made a sound somewhere between a whimper and a curse, and immediately regretted it. Easy. The voice was deep, calm, close. My eyes flew open. I was not dead. I was in a room that looked like it had been carved out of stone and stubbornness. Rough-hewn walls, a wide bed layered in thick blankets, firelight flickering low in a hearth that radiated steady warmth. And standing at the foot of the bed, the Alpha. He wasn't looming. He didn't need to. He stood with his arms crossed, broad shoulders relaxed, dark hair pulled back from a face carved with restraint rather than kindness. His presence pressed against my senses like gravity, not aggressive, contained. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I swallowed. "Okay," I said hoarsely. "Before you say anything scary, just know that if this is a kidnapping, I'm very low value." One dark brow lifted. I pressed on because apparently near-death experiences unlocked a survival instinct powered by sarcasm. "No powerful family," I added. "No secret fortune. I bake when I'm stressed and cry at commercials." Silence. Then, unexpectedly, his mouth twitched. Just barely. "Lyra Ashford," he said. My name sounded different in his voice. Heavier. "You're in Veilcrest territory." That meant nothing to me, which was probably bad. "Am I allowed to be?" I asked. "Yes," he said immediately. Then, after a pause, "For now." Ah, there it was. I shifted slightly and immediately regretted it. Heat flushed through me, followed by a wave of dizziness so sharp it stole my breath. My skin felt too tight, my senses buzzing like exposed wires. I gasped. He was at my side instantly. "Don't move," he ordered. Not harshly, but firmly enough that my body obeyed before my brain caught up. His hand hovered over my arm, not touching. Not yet. "You're experiencing rejection sickness," he said. That word again. Sickness. I laughed weakly. Wow, he really went for the full breakup package. His jaw tightened. Your scent destabilized when your bond was rejected. He continued. You collapsed in rogue territory. If I hadn't intervened, you did, I said quickly. Intervene. I noticed. The corner of his mouth twitched again. Good. I liked that I could still surprise him. He straightened, giving me space. Rogues hunt unclaimed females in your condition. You can't leave Veilcrest until your scent stabilizes. Ah, I said. So this is protective custody? Yes. And the part where I passed out in your arms, was that included or just a bonus feature? Something flickered in his eyes then, gone too fast to name. Temporary pack protection, he said instead. That's the arrangement. Arrangement. I stared at him. And what does that make me? He didn't hesitate. Pack property. The word landed heavy. I expected panic, anger, maybe humiliation round 2. Instead, I snorted. Of course I am, I said. Rejected by my ex and immediately adopted by his mortal enemy. Truly, fate has range. His lips pressed together, like he was holding back a response he didn't want to give voice to. Temporary, he repeated, until you're stable enough to choose what comes next. I searched his face for mockery, for hunger, for expectation. I found none. Only control. What's your name? I asked quietly. A pause. Ronan Veilcrest. Of course it was. Right, I said. Because why would the man who saves me from being eaten alive have a normal name, like Mike? That earned me a huff of breath that might have been a laugh. He turned toward the door. Rest. Food will be brought up. You'll be guarded at all times. Guarded? I echoed. For your safety. And yours? I asked, because something in his tone made the question feel relevant. He stopped at the doorway and looked back at me. For everyone's, he said. The door closed softly behind him. I lay there staring at the ceiling, heart racing, body aching, scent slowly settling into something quieter, contained by stone walls and thick blankets, and the undeniable truth that I was no longer alone. I wasn't free, but for the first time since Brightfall, I was safe. And somehow, that terrified me more than the rogues ever had. Chapter 6. Welcome to Veilcrest. I learned 2 things in the first hour of being Veilcrest Pack property. 1, they did not stare, which somehow was worse. 2, everyone knew exactly what I was. They didn't need to ask. When I finally forced myself upright, slowly, carefully, like my body was a fragile truce, the room tilted hard enough that I had to pause, breathing through another wave of heat and nausea. Rejection sickness was not linear. It came in waves. Fever 1 minute, bone-deep chill the next. My scent flickered unpredictably, sometimes so faint I felt hollow, sometimes flaring sharp enough to make my own eyes water. I made it 3 steps toward the door before it opened. 2 wolves stood outside. Guards, probably. Both male. Both built like they'd been carved from the same mountain as the lodge itself. Neither looked at me directly. Morning, I said, because I was committed to being me until someone forcibly removed the personality. One of them inclined his head. Alpha's orders. We're escorting you to eat. Wow, I said. 5-star service. Do I get a menu or just gruel? A pause. Then, unexpectedly, the other guard's mouth twitched. Progress. The corridors beyond my room were wide and stone-lined, warmed by torchlight and low burning hearths set into the walls. Everything smelled grounded: earth, fire, pine resin, and the steady, layered scent of wolves who belonged here. I did not. As we walked, I felt eyes on me, not intrusive, not hostile. Curious, calculating. Respectful in a way that made my shoulders itch. Veilcrest wolves carried themselves differently. No posturing, no whispers, no cruel interest. They simply noticed. The dining hall was already half full when we entered. Conversation softened, then resumed, quieter, but not tense. That's when I saw him. Ronan stood at the far end of the hall, speaking to a man who had to be his beta. Broad, scarred, eyes sharp with humor barely contained. Ronan's posture was relaxed, but his attention snapped to me instantly. Not startled, aware. Like he'd been tracking my movement the entire time. My stomach flipped. I focused very hard on not passing out. Food appeared in front of me, simple, hearty, warm. Broth, bread, fruit. I stared at it like it might explode. "You need to eat," a woman said gently beside me. Older, calm, strong in a way that felt earned. Slowly. I nodded and lifted the spoon with shaking fingers. The first sip burned all the way down. My eyes watered. "Good," she murmured. "That means you're still here." I laughed weakly. "Low bar. I appreciate it." Halfway through the bowl, the room wavered again. Heat flushed through me, sudden and intense, my skin prickling as my scent surged without warning. The hall went silent. I froze. Every instinct screamed, "Wrong, wrong, wrong." Ronan was beside me instantly. He didn't touch me. He knelt. "Breathe," he said quietly. "In through your nose, out through your mouth." His presence anchored the room. Wolves relaxed, just slightly, trusting his control. I did as he said. The flare receded slowly, painfully, like pulling back a wave with bare hands. "I'm sorry," I whispered, mortified. "You have nothing to apologize for," Ronan said firmly. He looked up at the hall. "She's under my protection. That hasn't changed." No one challenged him. Good to know. As he stood, his hand brushed the back of the chair near my shoulder, not touching me, but close enough that warmth radiated through the air. It grounded me, which felt dangerous. After breakfast, he walked me back himself. "Rules," he said as we moved through the corridor. I braced myself. "You don't leave the inner territory," he continued. "You don't wander alone. If your scent spikes, you find me or my beta immediately." "And if I break a rule?" I asked lightly. He stopped walking and looked at me fully. "I will restrain you," he said calmly. "For your safety." I believed him. "Noted," I said. "I'll try not to be a flight risk." A pause. "Your room is warded," he added. "No one enters without permission." "Mine or yours?" His gaze held mine. "Yours." Something in my chest eased at that. He opened the door and stepped aside. "Rest. You'll recover faster if you don't fight it." As I crossed the threshold, dizziness hit again, and I swayed. His hand closed around my arm, steady and careful, just long enough to keep me upright. Electricity shot through me. His grip tightened reflexively, then released. We both froze. The air felt charged. Too aware. Ronan stepped back immediately. "I won't touch you again," he said quietly. "Not unless you ask." My heart pounded painfully. "Okay," I whispered. He nodded once and left. I closed the door and leaned against it, breath shaking. Nothing about this place felt temporary. Nothing about him felt safe to get used to. And the most terrifying thought of all, for the first time since Brightfall, my body didn't feel rejected. It felt held, even without a single claim. Chapter 7. The night my body told the truth. Night didn't arrive gently in Valecrest. It pressed in. The fire burned low, casting slow-moving shadows across the stone walls. Outside, the forest breathed, deep, ancient sounds that made my skin prickle, like it recognized something older than fear. I lay on the bed fully clothed, blankets pulled tight around me, staring at the ceiling and pretending I wasn't unraveling. Rejection sickness didn't sleep. It waited. The first wave hit just after midnight. Heat surged under my skin, sharp and relentless, like my blood had forgotten how to cool itself. Sweat soaked my clothes. My heart raced erratically, thudding so hard it hurt. I curled onto my side, gasping. "Okay," I muttered. "Okay. This is fine. I am fine. This is definitely not how people die." My scent flared, wild, uncontrolled. I felt it spill into the room like a confession I hadn't meant to make. Panic followed. I tried to breathe through it like Ronan had shown me, but every inhale made the heat worse. My senses sharpened painfully, every crackle of the fire, every distant footstep echoing too loud. I squeezed my eyes shut. "Don't think about him." That made it worse. My body remembered his nearness with brutal clarity. The way the air steadied when he was close. The almost touch that had sent electricity straight through my bones. A sharp knock sounded at the door. "Lyra." His voice, low, controlled, too close. "I'm fine," I called hoarsely, because pride was apparently my hill to die on. Silence. Then the door opened anyway. Ronan stepped inside and stopped just past the threshold, as if there was an invisible line he refused to cross. He didn't come closer. Didn't have to. The room shifted around him. "You're not fine," he said quietly. I laughed weakly. "I've been worse." "That's a lie." I swallowed, throat burning. "I don't want to make this harder." His jaw tightened. "You won't." Another wave hit me then, violent and disorienting. Heat spiked. My limbs trembled uncontrollably. I cried out before I could stop myself. Ronan was at my side in an instant, still not touching. "Tell me what hurts," he ordered. "Everything," I gasped. "And nothing, my skin feels wrong." "Your body is recalibrating," he said. "The rejected bond left damage. It's correcting itself." "That sounds optimistic." "It's not," he said honestly. I laughed and then choked on a sob. "I wasn't even special," I whispered. "I wasn't fated. I wasn't marked. I just loved him." The words felt raw and humiliating in the quiet room. Ronan's hands clenched at his sides. "You were chosen," he said. I looked at him, startled. "That matters," he continued, voice tight. It doesn't disappear because fate arrived late. Late. Something about that word hurt differently.
Another surge hit me, harder this time. My vision blurred. I reached out blindly and stopped myself inches from him. "I'm sorry," I breathed. "I know you said." "Ask," he said immediately. The word cracked through the haze. I froze. Ask. My pride fought viciously. My fear joined in. But my body, my traitorous, honest body, had already decided. "Please," I whispered. "Just stay. Don't touch. Just stay." Ronan exhaled slowly, like he was diffusing something volatile. He sat on the edge of the bed, not close enough to touch, close enough to feel. His presence wrapped around me like a wall. The heat eased fractionally. My breathing slowed. I slumped back against the pillows, exhausted beyond words. "Thank you," I murmured. He didn't answer. Minutes passed. Maybe more. The fire popped softly. The forest shifted outside. I drifted in and out of sleep, fever dreams bleeding into memory. Evan's face, Isolde's calm gaze. Ronan's eyes, gold, steady, unreadable. At some point, I felt a weight settle over me, a blanket pulled higher, careful and precise. Not a touch, a choice. When I woke again, dawnlight was creeping into the room. My fever had broken. My body ached, but the sharp edge was gone. Ronan sat in the chair by the fire, unmoving, eyes closed but posture alert. He hadn't left. Something inside my chest shifted. Not hope. Something quieter. Something dangerous. I cleared my throat softly. His eyes opened instantly. "How long were you there?" I asked. "All night," he said. I nodded, absorbing that. "Well," I said dryly, "congratulations. You survived proximity to a disaster." His mouth curved, just barely. "So did you." As he stood to leave, I realized something that sent a chill through me, far colder than rejection ever had. My scent, still fragile, still healing, had settled. Not because I was alone, because he'd stayed. And I didn't know what that meant yet. But I knew it mattered. Chapter 8. Morning after the storm. I woke up disoriented. Not in the "where am I" way, but in the "why does my body feel steady" way. The ache was still there, deep and lingering, but the feverish edge was gone. My thoughts felt clearer. My breathing didn't scrape. And my scent, contained. That shouldn't have happened this fast. I pushed myself upright slowly, testing. No immediate collapse, no heat spike. Just exhaustion and a strange, humming awareness under my skin, like something newly awake but undecided. "Okay," I murmured. "That's suspicious." A tray sat on the table beside the bed. Food, water, and a small folded note. "Eat, then dress. We need to talk. R." Short, efficient, terrifying. I ate like someone who had learned the hard way not to argue with alphas before breakfast. When I stepped into the corridor, Valecrest felt different in daylight. Less shadowed, more imposing. Wolves moved with quiet purpose, their attention snapping briefly to me before sliding away again. Respectful. Which meant something had changed. Ronan waited near the central hearth, speaking in low tones with his beta, the same man from the hall yesterday. The beta's eyes flicked to me,
sharpened with curiosity. Lyra, Ronan said, turning fully toward me. Just hearing my name like that made my pulse jump. Good morning, I said. I survived the night. Please tell me I didn't howl. You did not, his beta said dryly. Disappointing, really. I blinked. Lyra, Ronan said, tone warning. The beta grinned. Thane called her. I enjoy alarming guests. Good to know, I said. I'll pencil in my terror. Ronan exhaled slowly. Come, he said. We're walking. That never meant good news. We moved through the outer halls and into open air. The Veilcrest grounds stretched wide, stone paths winding through towering pines, cliffs rising beyond, the mountains pressing close like guardians. It was beautiful and heavily warded. You stabilized faster than expected, Ronan said without preamble. I frowned. That's good? Yes, he said. Then, after a beat, and concerning. I snorted. Story of my life. Thane chuckled. Ronan shot him a look. The rejection should have taken longer to heal, Ronan continued. Days, possibly weeks. And instead I had a one-night dramatic spiral and woke up functional, I said. You're welcome. Ronan stopped walking. Thane stopped too. My stomach sank. There was a secondary surge during your fever, Ronan said carefully. Not rejection-based. Okay, I said slowly. That's bad, isn't it? It's rare, Thane said, and not documented outside of enough, Ronan cut in. He turned back to me. Your scent shifted. I swallowed. Shifted how? Stronger, he said. Older. The word settled heavily. Older than me? I asked. Yes. That did it. I laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Oh, come on. I already got rejected by fate once. If you tell me I'm secretly a cursed moon princess or something, I'm going back to bed. Ronan didn't smile. Thane didn't either. I stopped laughing. What does that mean? I asked quietly. Ronan hesitated, and that scared me more than any answer. It means, he said slowly, that your wolf may not have been dormant. May not have been suppressed, Thane finished, by design or by bloodline. My heart kicked painfully. I've never shifted, I said. Never even felt close. Until now, Ronan said. As if summoned by his words, something stirred under my skin, warm and heavy and aware, not painful, waiting. I wrapped my arms around myself. So, I wasn't the wrong mate. No, Ronan said immediately. The force in his voice startled me. You were the wrong timing, he corrected. And someone knew it. The implication landed hard. Someone had hidden me, or broken me, or delayed me. Before I could ask anything else, a sharp horn sounded from the outer ridge. Thane stiffened. We've got visitors. Ronan's gaze darkened. Brightfall, Thane added quietly. My stomach dropped. Ronan turned to me, all warmth gone, replaced by iron resolve. They're asking for you. I stared back at him, heart racing. Do I get a vote? I asked. His jaw tightened. Yes, he said. Then, more softly, but not without protection. The mountains seemed to lean closer around us, and for the first time since Brightfall, I understood something with terrifying clarity. Whatever I was becoming, it had already made me a problem.
Chapter 9. When Brightfall came to collect. They didn't arrive like enemies. That was the worst part. Brightfall's delegation rode in clean vehicles instead of wolves, polished and quiet, as if they were visiting a business partner instead of trespassing into a rival alpha's territory. Their clothes were tailored, their scents controlled, civilized. It made my skin crawl. I stood beside Ronan on the upper terrace overlooking the outer grounds, my hands folded in front of me so no one would notice how badly they were shaking. Evan stepped out first. Of course he did. He looked thinner than I remembered, sharper around the edges, like guilt had finally found a place to sit on his shoulders. Our eyes met. Something flickered across his face, relief, maybe, or shock. "She's alive," it said. She didn't disappear like I hoped. Behind him came 3 others, a councilman I recognized, a pack enforcer with dead eyes, and last, Isolde Wynne. She moved like she belonged everywhere. Calm, perfect, untouched by discomfort. I felt it then. Not pain. Distance. My body didn't lean toward Evan anymore, didn't ache, didn't react at all. That hurt more than the rejection had. Ronan stepped forward before they reached the steps. "This is Veilcrest territory," he said coolly. "You weren't invited." The councilman smiled thinly. "Alpha Veilcrest. We're here on pack business." "You're here for her," Ronan replied, not asking. Isolde's gaze slid to me, curious, assessing. "So you are," she said softly. I wondered. I forced myself to speak before fear swallowed my voice. "You found me. Congratulations." Evan flinched. "Lyra," he said. "Thank the moon you're alive." I tilted my head. "Funny. I don't remember you worrying about that part." Ronan didn't look at me, but his presence shifted, solid and unmistakable. The councilman cleared his throat. "Miss Ashford's condition destabilized Brightfall territory. Her scent flare attracted rogues. We're here to retrieve her." Retrieve. Like I was lost property. My stomach twisted. "Retrieve me where?" I asked. "Back to the apartment you asked me to leave?" Evan's jaw clenched. "That's not fair." I laughed, sharp and brittle. "You rejected me in public and told me to leave for my own safety. I did exactly what you wanted." Isolde finally spoke again. "This isn't personal. It's procedural." That was somehow worse. Ronan's voice cut through the air, cold and precise. "She is under my protection." The enforcer stiffened. "She's not your pack." "Not yet," Ronan agreed. Evan's head snapped up. "Yet?" The word echoed between us. Ronan turned slightly, positioning himself half a step in front of me. Possessive, but not claiming. "She entered Veilcrest territory injured and unstable," Ronan continued. "She was attacked by rogues. I intervened. She remains here until she recovers." The councilman frowned. "Brightfall has a right. You forfeited that right," Ronan said calmly. "When you rejected her without ensuring her safety." Silence. That landed. Evan's gaze dropped to the ground. "I didn't know rogues would," he started. "You knew she was vulnerable," Ronan interrupted. "You chose optics over protection." Evan looked at me then, desperation creeping into his scent.
Lyra, please. I never meant for this to happen. You know I cared about you. I studied him, really looked, and felt nothing. No, I said gently. You cared about what I made easy. Isolde's lips pressed together, not in anger, in calculation. She doesn't belong here, Isolde said. Her presence will destabilize your pack. Something in me snapped. I stepped forward before Ronan could stop me. I destabilized your pack, I said quietly, because I was inconvenient. Because fate didn't activate on your timeline, and instead of protecting me, you erased me. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. I won't go back, I said. Not with you. Not as a liability. Not as something you manage. The councilman looked to Ronan. You're willing to risk inter-pack conflict over her? Ronan didn't hesitate. Yes. Evan inhaled sharply. Isolde tilted her head. You don't even know what she is. Ronan's gaze hardened. Neither did you. That was it. The councilman nodded stiffly. Very well. But understand this. Brightfall will not forget this insult. Ronan inclined his head slightly. Neither will Veilcrest. They turned to leave. Evan lingered. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I met his eyes one last time. I believe you, I said. It just doesn't matter anymore. He flinched like I'd struck him. When they were gone, the mountain air felt lighter, cleaner. My knees wobbled. Ronan turned to me instantly. Are you all right? I let out a shaky breath. Ask me again when I stop wanting to throw up. His mouth twitched faintly. Fair. As we walked back toward the lodge, I realized something with startling clarity. Brightfall hadn't come to save me. They'd come because I was becoming something they didn't control. And standing beside Ronan Veilcrest, with his territory at my back and my past finally behind me, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever was waking inside me, they were already afraid of it. Chapter 10. Staying was the first choice I made. I didn't decide to stay in Veilcrest with a dramatic speech. There was no thunder, no proclamation, no inner voice declaring destiny like it had a marketing budget. I decided because when I imagined leaving, my chest tightened, and when I imagined staying, it didn't. That scared me more than anything Brightfall had said. I found Ronan in the lower training yard just after dawn. The space was cut into the mountain itself, stone floor worn smooth, iron rings set into the walls, wards etched so deeply they felt permanent. He was already there. Of course he was. You're up early, I said. You're late, he replied. I glanced at the sun barely cresting the ridge. I almost died 3 times this week. I'm redefining punctuality. The corner of his mouth twitched. Progress. I want to stay, I said before my courage ran out. He stilled. For now, I added quickly, until I understand what's happening to me, until I can walk into a room without destabilizing the ecosystem. He studied me carefully, not like an alpha assessing property, but like a man weighing risk. This won't be easy, he said. I don't want easy, I replied. I want control. Something unreadable passed through his eyes. Then we start today, he said. Training, it turned out, was not cinematic. There were no inspirational speeches, no dramatic gestures, just breathing, standing still, learning how not to panic when my sense stirred. Again? Ronan said calmly as heat rose under my skin for the 5th time in 10 minutes. I am trying, I snapped, then immediately winced as the flare spiked. Stop trying, he said. Trying tightens it. Great, I muttered. My trauma is performance-based. He circled slowly, never too close. Your wolf isn't broken, it's untrained. Someone suppressed it instead of teaching you how to listen. That landed harder than I expected. I thought I just didn't have one, I said quietly. Ronan stopped. You do, he said firmly, and it's been waiting. The heat shifted then, different this time, less chaotic, more focused. I inhaled slowly. The flare didn't explode. It settled. Ronan exhaled, just slightly. Good, he murmured. I smiled despite myself. Did you just compliment me? I acknowledged progress, he said dryly. Basically praise. He didn't argue. Hours passed like that. Control, rest, repetition. Every time my sense surged, Ronan anchored the space with presence alone. He never touched me, never reached, which somehow made everything feel more intimate. At one point, dizziness hit hard and I swayed. His hand shot out automatically and stopped inches from my arm. He froze. I steadied myself. Still okay with no touching, I said, breathless. Just checking. His jaw tightened. Yes. Good, I said, because I'm pretty sure my nervous system would combust. He looked away first. Later, sitting on the low stone wall with water between my hands, I realized something quietly monumental. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being managed. I was being taught. I wasn't a liability. I was a responsibility Ronan had chosen to take on. That thought warmed me in a way I didn't trust yet. As the sun climbed higher, Thane appeared at the edge of the yard. Council wants a timeline, he said. Brightfall's stirring. Ronan didn't look at him. They'll wait. Thane's gaze slid to me. You planning to be worth the trouble? I smiled sweetly. Already am. Thane laughed outright. When Ronan finally dismissed me for the day, exhaustion settled deep into my bones. But it was the good kind. The earned kind. As I walked back toward the lodge, I felt it again, that quiet hum under my skin. Steadier now. Watching. Not dangerous. Not yet. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and let the truth settle. I hadn't stayed because I was afraid to leave. I stayed because somewhere between stone walls and mountain air, under the watch of an alpha who refused to touch me, I was becoming myself. And whatever woke fully when the time came, it wouldn't be owned. It would be chosen. Chapter 11. Control is a lie you practice until it isn't. Control works best in silence, in stillness, in rooms where nothing unexpected happens. Veilcrest did not offer me that luxury for long. The warning came in the form of a smell. Metallic, sharp, wrong. I was halfway through breathing exercises in the upper yard, actually doing well, thank you very much, when it hit me like a slap across the senses. My spine stiffened. The hum under my skin went from steady to alert. Predator. Not close, but coming. I straightened slowly, heart thudding. Ronan? He was already there. Not rushing, not panicking, just present. Like he'd stepped out of the mountain itself. Inside, he said. That should have been enough. It wasn't. Another scent cut through the air, familiar in the worst possible way. Brightfall. My stomach twisted. Heat surged under my skin before I could stop it, my carefully learned control unraveling thread by thread. No, I breathed. They're not supposed to be here. They aren't, Ronan said, which is the problem. The horn sounded seconds later. Not Veilcrests. A challenge. The pack reacted instantly. Wolves moving with purpose, voices low, tension snapping into place like a well-worn blade. And me? I stood there shaking, my scent flaring wildly as adrenaline drowned out discipline. I can't, I started. I need, Lyra, Ronan said sharply. Look at me. I did. The world narrowed. Breathe, he ordered. You are not in danger yet. Yet. That word snapped something fragile inside me. They came because of me, I said, voice breaking. I destabilize things. I make people stupid and territorial and— Stop, he said. Not loud. Final. I froze. You did not invite them, Ronan continued. You did not provoke them. You are not responsible for other packs choosing aggression. My chest heaved. The heat didn't recede. It got worse. Pain lanced through my core, sharp and sudden, like something twisting awake inside me without permission. I gasped, dropping to one knee as my vision blurred. Lyra! Hands grabbed my shoulders. Ronan. Touch. The instant his skin met mine, electricity detonated through my body. Not soothing. Explosive. My scent surged violently, ancient, bright, undeniable, rippling outward like a shockwave. The pack went still. Every wolf in the yard snapped their heads toward us. Ronan swore under his breath. I cried out as the pressure peaked, something tearing loose inside me. Not a shift, not yet, but close enough that my bones screamed with the promise of it. I'm sorry, I sobbed. I'm trying, I swear. I know, Ronan said tightly. His grip adjusted automatically, anchoring me even as he fought himself. I know. That was worse, because I felt it then. His restraint, not absence, not indifference. Choice. The pressure finally broke, not outward, but inward. My scent collapsed back into me with a violent snap, leaving me gasping and hollow. The world steadied. Ronan released me instantly, stepping back like he'd been burned. The silence was absolute. Thane appeared at the edge of the yard, eyes sharp. They crossed the outer boundary. Ronan straightened, every trace of softness gone. How many? 5, armed, asking for you. My stomach dropped. I didn't even do anything, I whispered. Ronan turned to me. You did, he said quietly. You survived. He gestured to Thane. Take her inside, ward the room. No one approaches her without my say. And you? I asked, fear clawing up my throat. I will handle this. He started to turn away. I grabbed his arm without thinking. The contact sent another jolt through me, but smaller this time, controlled. Don't, I said hoarsely. Don't do this like I'm not part of it. Ronan looked down at my hand, then back at my face. You are part of it, he said, which is exactly why you stay alive. I released him slowly. He left without another word. Thane escorted me back through the halls, his usual humor absent. You just rang a very old bell, he said quietly. I don't even know what bell it is, I replied. Neither do they, he said grimly. That's why they're scared. When my door sealed behind me and the wards flared to life, I sank onto the bed, shaking. My body still buzzed with aftershocks. Control wasn't gone, but it wasn't solid anymore. Something in me had answered Ronen's touch, something that recognized him far too easily. And the worst truth of all? When he let go, it hurt. Chapter 12. The night I stopped waiting. The wards sang. Not audibly, nothing that simple. But I felt it in my teeth, in the hollow behind my eyes. A pressure ripple rolled through the stone beneath my feet, like the mountain itself had flinched. I sat up in bed, heart hammering. Something was wrong. Veilcrest wasn't quiet anymore. It hummed with tension, boots on stone, clipped commands, the distant thud of bodies moving too fast to be human. And underneath it all? Blood. Not spilled yet, anticipated. I pressed my palm to my sternum, breathing the way Ronen had taught me. Slow, controlled. Anchor inward. It worked. For exactly 3 seconds. Then the ward on my door flared bright enough to make the air crackle, and a force slammed into it from the outside. I screamed. The impact rattled the walls, throwing me forward onto my hands. Pain burst through my palms. The wards held, but barely. "Lyra!" Thane's voice shouted from somewhere down the corridor. "Stay back from the—" The second hit came harder. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ward lines, glowing hot and angry. Whoever was on the other side wasn't testing anymore. They were breaking in. My scent spiked in response, hot, sharp, furious. I felt it pour out of me like a challenge I hadn't meant to issue. "Damn it!" I gasped. "Not now!" The mountain answered. Not Ronen, the mountain. Something deep beneath my skin surged in response, a heavy presence stretching and unfurling like it had been waiting for permission. Enough. The word wasn't spoken. It was felt. The third impact shattered the wards. The door exploded inward, splintering wood and ward light into a blinding burst. I threw my arms up instinctively, and the air bent. I felt it happen before I saw it. Pressure slamming outward from my core, a concussive wave that knocked 3 bodies flat before they crossed the threshold. They hit the stone hard, didn't get back up. I stood there, chest heaving, staring at my hands. They were shaking, but they weren't weak. The enforcer from Brightfall groaned, rolling onto his side, eyes wide with something that looked suspiciously like fear. "What the hell are you?" he rasped. I swallowed hard. I was kind of hoping you'd tell me. Another presence hit the corridor then, violent, lethal, unmistakable. Ronen. He arrived like judgment, taking in the scene in a single glance. Broken door, downed wolves, me, standing unclaimed, glowing faintly with power I didn't understand. His eyes burned gold. "Inside," he ordered the intruders. "You do not touch her." One of them laughed weakly. "Too late." Ronen didn't hesitate. He moved, fast and final. The sound of impact echoed sickeningly as he slammed the speaker into the wall hard enough to crack stone. The others scrambled back, suddenly very aware of whose territory they'd violated. "She's not finished awakening," one of them said shakily. "You're risking everything keeping her here." Ronen's voice dropped to something cold and terrible. I am preventing you from killing her out of fear. The enforcer's gaze flicked to me again. She won't stay contained. I felt that then, the truth in it. My heart raced, not with panic, but with recognition. They were right. I wasn't contained anymore. Ronan turned to me, scanning for injuries. Are you hurt? No, I said. Then, quieter. But I could have been. He nodded once. Thane appeared beside him, eyes sharp and calculating. That surge, half the wards felt it. I know, Ronan said. I laughed weakly. Sorry? No, Ronan said immediately. Never apologize for surviving. The remaining Brightfall wolves were escorted out under heavy guard. The corridor cleared slowly, the echo of violence lingering like smoke. When it was just us, Ronan finally looked at me fully. Not like an alpha assessing risk, like a man realizing the ground beneath him had shifted. You didn't wait for me, he said quietly. I didn't know if you'd make it in time, I replied. And I wasn't going to die politely in my room. Something fierce sparked in his eyes. Good, he said. Silence stretched between us, charged and dangerous. My hands started shaking again, delayed reaction maybe, or the aftershock of touching something too big to hold alone. Ronan stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that the air between us felt alive. What I felt just now, I said hoarsely. That wasn't rejection breaking. That was something else. Yes, he said. You knew, I accused softly. I suspected, he corrected. I hoped I was wrong. Why? Because when it finishes waking, he said, voice low, every pack will come for you. My stomach dropped. And you? I asked. His gaze held mine. I will stand in front of them, he said simply. The words settled heavy and real. I believed him, which scared me more than the power humming under my skin. Because for the first time, the danger wasn't just outside the walls. It was inside me. And it was done waiting. Chapter 13. The Thing That Answered Back. I didn't sleep after the attack. My body lay still, exhausted to the marrow, but my mind stayed wired, too alert, too aware of every sound in the mountain. The wards had been repaired, the halls quieted. Veilcrest returned to its controlled, dangerous calm. I did not. Something inside me had stretched, not snapped, not broken. Stretched, like a muscle that had finally remembered its purpose. When dawn crept pale and thin through the high windows, I swung my legs over the side of the bed and immediately froze. The floor felt wrong. Not cold, not solid. Alive. I pressed my bare feet down cautiously. Stone. Normal. And yet my senses told me more. Microfractures, heat pockets, the faint echo of movement far below. I sucked in a breath. Oh, I whispered. That's new. The hum under my skin surged in response, pleased. Pleased. That was not a sensation I was emotionally prepared to unpack before breakfast. I dressed slowly, hands shaking, pausing every few minutes when waves of heat rolled through me. Not feverish now, but focused, purposeful. Like my body was aligning itself around something heavy and inevitable. When I stepped into the corridor, Every head turned. Not curiosity this time. Recognition. Wolves straightened as I passed. Some lowered their gazes. Others watched openly, wary and sharp. I swallowed. "Good morning," I said faintly, because habits die hard. No one answered. Fantastic. I found Ronan on the upper overlook, staring out over the mountains like he was daring them to move. He sensed me before I reached him. His posture shifted subtly, awareness snapping into place. "You should be resting," he said without turning. "I did enough of that," I replied. "Something's wrong." He faced me then, and his breath caught, just slightly. "What?" I demanded. "What do you see?" Ronan studied me carefully. Too carefully. "Your eyes," he said. "They're not the same." My heart slammed. That's not ominous at all. "They're brighter," he continued. "And your scent, please stop saying my scent like it's gossip," I snapped. "What is happening to me?" He exhaled slowly. "Your awakening has progressed." "I noticed," I said dryly. "I can hear the mountain." That got his full attention. "You can't," he said sharply. "I really can," I shot back. "It's very judgy, by the way." Silence. Then Ronan swore under his breath. "Lyra," he said carefully, "has anything physical happened?" I hesitated. Define physical. Pain, pressure, bone shift sensations. I opened my mouth to say no and doubled over as agony ripped through my spine. I screamed. The world tilted violently as heat detonated through my bones. My muscles seized. My skin burned, stretched too tight over something that wanted out. Ronan caught me as my knees gave out. I felt it then. The thing inside me. Not a stranger. A presence. Old. Patient. Furious at being caged. My vision fractured. Color sharpening. Edges glowing. I could see Ronan's pulse at his throat. Hear the blood moving through him. Smell everything. Stone, fire, iron. Him. "Oh my God," I gasped. "I'm shifting." "Not fully," Ronan said tightly. "Fight it." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do," he snapped. "You've been listening to it. Now command it." Command. The word hit something deep. I clutched his forearm, not caring anymore, grounding myself in the solid, unyielding reality of him. Enough, I thought. Not to the pain, but to the thing inside me. Not yet. The pressure screamed in protest, but slowed. My bones realigned with a sickening series of pops. Claws half-formed at my fingertips before retracting painfully. My canines ached, elongated, then receded. I collapsed against Ronan, shaking violently. He held me. Actually held me. No restraint, no distance. Just arms locked around me like he'd decided something and damned the consequences. When the world steadied, I was still human. Barely. Ronan rested his forehead against mine, breath uneven. "You stopped it." "I didn't," I whispered. "I postponed it." "Yes," he agreed. "That's worse." I huffed weakly. "Glad we're on the same page." He almost laughed. Almost. Then his expression hardened. "This changes things," he said. "I gathered," I replied. "I knocked down armed wolves with my feelings." "That surge," he continued. was not defensive instinct alone. I swallowed. Then what was it? His gaze dropped briefly to my mouth, then lifted again, controlled but burning. It answered a call. The air between us thickened. "What call?" I asked. Ronan's voice lowered. "Mine." My heart slammed so hard it hurt. "That's not possible," I said. "No," he agreed. "It's inevitable." The word settled like a sentence. I pulled back slightly, panic creeping in around the edges of the lingering heat. "You said you wouldn't—" "I won't," he interrupted. "Not without your consent. Not until you choose." "Choose what?" I demanded. He met my eyes, unwavering. "Whether you want to finish becoming," he said, "or spend the rest of your life being hunted for what you are." The mountain rumbled faintly beneath our feet. Inside me, something answered. Waiting. Watching. And for the first time since fate shattered my life in Brightfall, I understood the truth clearly enough to terrify me. I had not been rejected because I was wrong. I had been delayed. And whatever I was becoming, it was done waiting. Chapter 14. Choosing still hurts. I didn't answer him right away. I couldn't, because choosing meant admitting something out loud that I'd spent my whole life dodging. That I was tired of surviving by being small. That I was tired of hoping people would protect me out of kindness instead of necessity. And because the other truth was worse, I wanted him. Not in the simple, reckless way I'd wanted Evan. Not the soft, hopeful wanting that bends itself into whatever shape someone else prefers. This was different. This was gravity. "I don't want to be hunted," I said finally. Ronan nodded once. "You won't be." "That's not the same as choosing you," I added quickly. "I need you to hear that." His jaw tightened. "I do." I pulled away from him fully then, needing space before my body made promises my mouth wasn't ready to keep. "I need to understand what I am," I said, "not just what everyone else wants me to be." "That's fair," Ronan said. The relief in his voice startled me. "You're not angry," I said. "No," he replied. "I'm relieved you're still choosing it all." That landed harder than any pressure or pain. We didn't speak as we walked, down the stairs, through the long stone corridors, past wolves who pretended very hard not to watch the space between us. Every step echoed. Every breath felt loud. When we reached the training chamber again, I stopped. "This ends one of two ways," I said quietly. "Either I finish waking up, or I break trying." "Yes," Ronan agreed. "And if I finish," I continued, "everything changes." He didn't deny it. I swallowed. "Including you." That, finally, made him hesitate. "If you finish awakening," he said carefully, "you will no longer be able to hide what you are. Your wolf will demand truth." "And yours?" I asked. He met my gaze. "Mine already has." The admission burned. "Then this isn't just about survival," I said. "It's about restraint." "Yes." "And you've been practicing it longer than I have." "For years," he said. Something in me softened at that. Not weakness, understanding. "Teach me," I said. "Not how to obey it, how to live with it." Ronan exhaled slowly, like a man stepping onto thin ice by choice. "I can," he said. "But once you cross that threshold, there's no returning to the version of you Brightfall rejected." I laughed quietly. "They can keep her." That earned me a ghost of a smile. The training was different this time. No breathing exercises, no grounding rituals. This was confrontation. Ronan stood several feet away, giving me space, and said one word. "Call it." My pulse spiked. "That's it? No warning label?" "Call your wolf," he repeated. "Not with fear, with intent." I closed my eyes. The presence stirred immediately, alert, ready, coiled tight. "Come closer," I thought, not pleading, not demanding, inviting. Heat flooded me, fierce and clean. My spine arched involuntarily as my senses flared, sound sharpening, scent exploding into layers and meaning. I gasped, but didn't lose myself. "Not yet," I told it, "but soon." The pressure eased, settling heavy and alive beneath my skin. When I opened my eyes, Ronan was staring at me like I'd just rewritten something sacred. "You didn't fracture," he said. "I didn't panic," I replied, breathless. "It listened." "Yes," he said softly, "because you spoke to it as an equal." The realization hit me so hard I had to sit down. I wasn't defective. I wasn't delayed by accident. Someone, somewhere, had decided the world wasn't ready for what I was. And now? That wasn't their choice anymore. Exhaustion crashed into me, sudden and complete. Ronan knelt in front of me, not touching, but close enough that his presence steadied the room. "Tonight," he said, "your wolf will test you again." "And if I fail?" "You won't," he said simply. I met his gaze, fear and heat tangling tight in my chest. "And you?" I asked. "What happens to you if I succeed?" His voice dropped, honest and unguarded. "I will have to stop pretending I can let you go." Silence stretched between us. Dangerous, intimate, unresolved. That night, alone in my room, I lay awake with my hands folded over my stomach, feeling the steady, patient weight of something no longer content to wait forever. I had chosen to wake. I just hadn't chosen what I would become after. And that was somehow the most terrifying part of all. Chapter 15. Becoming is not gentle. The mountain didn't wait for permission. It waited for certainty. Night felt thick and heavy, clouds choking the moon until the dark felt deliberate. I stood alone in the inner circle Ronan had prepared, etched stone glowing faintly beneath my bare feet, wards humming low and steady, like a held breath. I could feel her now, my wolf. Not scratching, not begging, standing. "It's time," she said, not in words, but in weight and intention. I swallowed hard. "Okay," I whispered into the dark. "Okay, but you don't get to erase me." The presence inside me didn't resist. It leaned in. Heat detonated. Not the sharp, panicked flare from before, but something deeper, heavier, like molten metal pouring through my bones. My spine arched as pain ripped through me, white-hot and merciless. I screamed as my joints locked, then twisted, muscles stretching beyond anything human. This wasn't a breaking. This was a claiming. My senses shattered outward, sound splintering into layers, scent exploding into meaning. Stone, iron, pine, blood. Him. Ronen's presence slammed into my awareness like gravity finding its center. I tried to breathe. My ribs expanded, too far, cracked, reformed. I sobbed as my hands hit the ground, claws tearing into stone, the sound of it echoing like thunder. My vision warped, colors bleeding into sharp, luminous clarity. I was losing myself. No, I thought desperately. With me, not over me. The wolf surged and stopped. She didn't retreat. She aligned. The pain shifted, still brutal, but purposeful now. My bones realigned with sickening pops, fur erupting along my arms and spine, my body folding and reshaping until I collapsed fully onto all fours. I gasped, lungs burning, heart slamming, and the world steadied. I was bigger, heavier, stronger. I lifted my head slowly and caught my reflection in the polished stone. White. Not pale. White like moonbone and winter and something ancient that didn't ask permission to exist. A low sound tore from my chest, not a scream, a howl. The mountain answered. I felt it then, the final lock sliding into place, the sense of rightness settling so deep it made my eyes burn. I had shifted, fully, for the first time in my life. Movement at the edge of the circle snapped my attention sharp. Ronen. He stood just outside the wards, frozen, not in fear, but in something that looked dangerously like reverence. His scent hit me hard. Shock, awe, and something that burned low and feral beneath it. I took a step toward him. The bond snapped taut, not formed, recognized. The world narrowed violently. His breath hitched. Lyra, he said hoarsely. Hearing my name in his voice, through wolf senses, nearly dropped me to the stone again. I pressed my paw to the ward line instinctively. The magic shuddered, but held. Good, because if it hadn't, I would have gone to him without thinking. I lifted my head, forcing control through instinct and power alike. This doesn't own me, I told myself. It walks beside me. The wolf agreed. Slowly, painfully, the shift reversed. Fur receded, bones reformed. I collapsed back onto the stone in a heap of shaking limbs and gasping breath. Strong hands caught me before the floor could. Ronen. Touch. This time, my body didn't explode. It settled. He wrapped his cloak around me, holding me upright against his chest like it was the most natural thing in the world. You did it, he said quietly. I didn't die, I panted. That feels relevant. A rough sound escaped him, half laugh, half exhale of relief. You're rare, he said, voice tight. White wolves are. I know, I interrupted weakly. Let me guess. Ancient, powerful, complicated. Yes, he said, then softer. And hunted. I leaned into him without thinking. Not submission. Trust. The bond thrummed between us, bright and alive now, no longer theoretical. It wasn't complete, but it was awake. I felt him then. Not thoughts. Intent. Protection. Restraint strained to the breaking point. Ronen, I whispered. This doesn't mean you get to decide for me. I know, he said immediately. It means I wait until you decide. I closed my eyes, exhaustion crashing over me in waves. For the first time, my wolf didn't pull away from the dark. She stood in it, whole. When Ronan carried me back into the mountain, every instinct I had, human and wolf alike, knew the truth, even if I wasn't ready to say it yet. I was no one's mistake. I was no one's consolation. And whatever happened next, there was no going back to before.
Chapter 16. The World Notices. I woke up sore in places I didn't know existed. Not injured, just deeply, profoundly used, like every cell in my body had clocked overtime without filing a complaint. My muscles hummed with leftover energy, my senses still sharpened at the edges. And my wolf, she was there. Not pacing, not clawing. Present. That alone was enough to make my throat tighten. I lay still, cataloging sensations the way Ronan had taught me. Stone beneath the bed. Firelight nearby. Mountain air filtered through wards thick enough to feel like pressure against my skin. And him. Ronan stood near the window, arms folded, gaze fixed outward, like the view might try something if he looked away too long. He sensed me wake instantly. "How do you feel?" he asked without turning. "Like I ran a marathon, wrestled a bear, and then became one," I said. "So, better than expected?" That got a breath of amusement. He turned then, and something in his expression shifted. Not hunger, not possession. Respect. That terrified me more than fear ever had. "The pack felt it," he said. "Your shift." I swallowed. "All of them?" "Yes." "And Brightfall?" His jaw tightened. "By now." I groaned and dragged a pillow over my face. "Great, I've been awake for 30 seconds and already caused an international incident." He crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed, not touching me, but close enough that the air changed. "You didn't cause this," he said. "You revealed it." "Same difference," I muttered. "No," he corrected quietly. "They will come because they want what you are." I dropped the pillow and looked at him. "And what am I exactly?" He held my gaze for a long moment before answering. "A catalyst," he said. "A white wolf hasn't awakened in generations. Packs mythologize them. Wars have started over less." "That's comforting," I said flatly. His mouth curved faintly. "You're handling this remarkably well." "I dissociate under pressure," I replied. "It's a gift." There was a knock at the door, sharp, respectful. Thane leaned in. "Council's convening. Now." Ronan nodded once. Thane's gaze slid to me, sharp and assessing, and then softened just a fraction. "You look solid." "Thanks," I said. "I feel like a legend with joint pain." That earned me a huff of laughter. The council chamber was carved deep into the mountain, old enough that the stone itself felt sentient. Wolves lined the walls, elders, enforcers, watchers, all eyes tracking me as Ronan led me to the center. No one spoke. I stood tall anyway. Ronan didn't place a hand on me. He didn't need to. "She has awakened," an elder said finally. "Fully." "Yes," Ronan replied. "She is unclaimed." "Yes." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. I clenched my hands into fists. "I'd like to clarify something," I said before anyone could ask permission on my behalf. "Unclaimed does not mean unprotected." A few brows lifted. Ronan didn't stop me. Good. I am here by choice, I continued. I'm not an offering. I'm not a bargaining chip. And if anyone thinks they can force a bond on me because I glowed last night, I will demonstrate exactly why that's a bad idea. Silence. Then, slowly, approval. Not loud, but real. The elder inclined her head. You speak like a wolf who knows herself. I'm learning, I said honestly. When the council dispersed, the mountain felt heavier, but steadier. Like something ancient had accepted a new truth. Later, walking the outer path alone, the weight of it finally hit me. The looks, the whispers, the fear carefully disguised as reverence. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't expendable. I was seen. Ronan found me there, standing at the cliff's edge, staring down at the valley. You didn't have to face them alone, he said quietly. I needed to, I replied. If I'm going to be this thing, I need to own it. He stepped closer, not touching, never pushing. I won't rush you, he said. The bond will wait. I looked at him then, really looked. You don't sound like a man who wants to wait, I said softly. His voice dropped, honest and raw. I sound like a man who will. That undid me more than any claim ever could. As the sun dipped low and the mountain cast long shadows, my wolf stirred, not restless, ready. Not for him, for the world. And I understood something then, with a clarity that settled deep in my bones. The hardest part wasn't surviving rejection. It wasn't awakening power. It was learning how to stand in the space between what I was and what I was about to choose. Chapter 17. When the mountain is surrounded. I felt them before anyone told me. Not footsteps, not sound. Pressure. The kind that settles into your bones when too many predators decide the same piece of land looks appetizing. I stood on the upper rampart, wind snapping cold against my face, and watched unfamiliar banners crest the ridgelines, dark shapes against the pale morning sky. Packs, plural. My wolf stirred, alert but steady, not afraid. That scared me. Ronan joined me without a word, his presence slotting in beside mine like it had always belonged there. He didn't touch me, didn't need to. They're not waiting, I said. No, he agreed. They smelled the awakening. They won't. How many? I asked. Enough, he replied. Too many to fight without consequences. I exhaled slowly. So they're here to negotiate? Yes. And by negotiate, you mean circle the mountain and hope I get nervous enough to choose wrong. His jaw tightened. They'll demand protection rights, oversight, a bond they can influence. Or ownership, I said flatly. Ronan didn't deny it. That settled something sharp and clean inside me. The council chamber was standing room only when we entered. Wolves from Valecrest lined the walls, tense, contained. Outside delegates waited beyond the wards, their sense bleeding in like an accusation. An elder spoke first. They want assurance. Assurance of what? I asked. That you won't destabilize the balance. Another answered carefully. I laughed once, humorless. I destabilized it by existing. Murmurs followed. Ronan stepped forward. Lyra Ashford will not be bound by council decree. And yet, a voice cut in from the ward line, smooth and confident.
She cannot remain unclaimed. The speaker stepped forward, an alpha I didn't recognize. Tall, silver-eyed, smiling like this was already decided. A white wolf without a bond invites war, he continued. Claim her, Veilcrest. End this. Silence slammed into the room. Every gaze slid to Ronan, then to me. I felt the bond surge, not complete, but blazing bright enough to hurt. My wolf leaned forward, aware now that this wasn't theory. This was choice. Ronan looked at me, not asking, not claiming, waiting. That was the moment it crystallized, the difference between Evan and him, between being chosen because it was convenient and being waited for because it mattered. I won't be claimed to prevent violence, I said clearly. That's not consent. That's coercion. The visiting alpha's smile thinned. Then you doom this territory. I turned to Ronan. Do you believe that? No, he said instantly. Relief loosened my ribs. I believe, he continued, voice carrying, that she is stronger unclaimed than half-bonded out of fear. A dangerous statement. I felt it ripple through the chamber. Then what do you propose? The elder asked. I stepped forward before Ronan could answer. I propose time, I said. Not endless, not symbolic. Real. I met each alpha's gaze in turn. I will choose a bond, I continued, or I will refuse one. But I will not be rushed into surrendering myself to make others comfortable. The visiting alpha scoffed. And if you refuse? I smiled slowly. Then you'll learn what an unclaimed white wolf does when cornered. Silence. Then, respect. Not agreement, but something close enough to matter. Ronan's gaze burned into me, pride and fear warring in equal measure. The elders conferred in low voices. Finally, 1 lunar cycle. My heart skipped. 1 cycle, the elder repeated. After that, a decision must be made. I nodded. Agreed. The mountains seemed to exhale as the wards brightened and the visiting packs withdrew, reluctant, watchful, already planning. When the chamber emptied, Ronan stopped me in the corridor. That was reckless, he said quietly. I tilted my head. You're the one who raised a wolf who won't kneel. Something in his expression softened, dangerously. 1 lunar cycle, he said. I won't pressure you. I know, I replied. That's why this is hard. We stood there, too close, the bond humming between us like a held breath. I looked up at him. If I choose you, he didn't interrupt. It won't be because the world demanded it, I finished. It'll be because I want you. His voice was rough. That's the only claim I'll accept. The mountain rumbled faintly beneath us. Not a warning, approval. And for the first time, the end of my story didn't feel like a verdict. It felt like a decision I was finally allowed to make.
Chapter 18. The Space Between Yes and Forever. The mountain changed after the council's decision. Not visibly. The stone didn't rearrange itself, the wards didn't flare brighter than usual. But the weight of the place shifted, like everyone was holding the same breath and pretending not to notice. 1 lunar cycle. Time had never felt so loud. I spent the first few days pretending everything was normal, training in the mornings, resting when the aftershocks hit, eating meals where no one mentioned the fact that half the known packs were waiting to see who I would become. It didn't work.
Everywhere I went, I felt it. Expectation wrapped in courtesy. Respect edged with fear. Wolves stepping aside just a second earlier than necessary. Legend status, apparently, came with a lot of personal space. Ronan didn't hover. That was worse. He was there when I needed him, never late, never intrusive, but he didn't push, didn't circle, didn't try to earn points toward a claim like the world expected him to. He waited. By the 5th night, that restraint felt heavier than chains. I found him in the upper watch room after sunset, the one carved into the cliff face where the wind screamed loud enough to drown out thought. He stood with his forearms braced against the stone railing, staring out into the dark valley like he was measuring how much trouble it could hold. "You're brooding," I said. He didn't turn. "I'm counting." "Stars?" I guessed. "Enemies?" "Heartbeats," he said. "Until you come in here." I froze. "Well," I said lightly, "that's either romantic or deeply unsettling." He glanced back at me then, eyes dark, unreadable. "Both." I stepped closer, stopping just out of reach. The bond hummed between us, quiet, steady, intimate in a way that made my wolf lean forward without pushing. "I'm not going to change my mind because you're being noble," I said softly. "I know," he replied. "That's not why I'm doing it." "Then why?" "Because if you choose me," he said, voice low, "I want to know it wasn't because I couldn't stop myself." Something inside my chest cracked. I leaned my elbows on the railing beside him, the valley yawning wide and dark below us. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "Not claiming before this, living with restraint for so long." "Yes," he said immediately. I blinked. "Oh. Every day," he added. "And I'd do it again." I laughed softly, the sound torn loose by nerves. "You're terrible at making this easier." He turned fully toward me then, close enough that the heat of him bled into my space without contact. "I'm not trying to make it easy." My wolf stirred, pressing close to the surface, not demanding, just curious, aware. "I'm afraid," I admitted quietly. "Of me?" he asked. "No," I said. "Of pursuing and finding out I was wrong again." His expression softened in a way that hurt. "You won't be," he said. "But even if you are, I won't turn it into a sentence." That did it. I reached out and took his hand. The contact was electric, but controlled. Not explosive, not consuming. Just real. He didn't pull me closer, didn't claim. He let me decide how much space closed between us. I stepped in, rested my forehead against his chest. Not submission, seeking. His breath stuttered, then evened as his arms came around me, not tight, not possessive. Just holding. The bond surged, not sealing, not locking. Acknowledging. For a long moment, we stood there with the wind howling around us, the mountain bearing witness to something fragile and dangerous. "This doesn't mean yes," I murmured. "I know," he said. "But it doesn't mean no, either." His voice was rough. "I know." When I finally pulled away, my hands trembled, not from fear, but from the effort of stopping. As I walked back toward my room, heart pounding, wolf purring low and satisfied, I understood something with terrifying clarity. The hardest part wasn't resisting the bond. It was trusting myself to choose it freely. And the moon was already climbing.
Chapter 19. When Waiting Becomes a Weapon.
The attack didn't come at night. That should have warned us. It came at dawn. Soft light spilling over the peaks, birds still foolish enough to sing. The kind of morning that tricks you into believing the world has rules. I was halfway through pulling on my boots when the mountain shuddered. Not a tremor, a strike. The wards screamed this time, no subtle hum, no polite warning. Pain shot through my skull as ancient magic flared hot and furious, the taste of copper flooding my mouth. I staggered, grabbing the bedpost. Multiple breaches. My wolf informed me calmly. They are not asking anymore. I ran. Barely dressed, hair loose, heart slamming, I tore through the corridors toward the upper rampart. Wolves flooded the halls, Veilcrest shifting mid-run, claws and fur ripping free as alarms rang. Ronan hit the corridor ahead of me like a force of nature. "Lyra!" he barked. "I'm here!" I shouted back. "Tell me where!" His eyes locked on mine, and in that instant, the bond flared so hard it nearly dropped us both. North Ridge. I didn't need him to say it. "They're using knoll wards!" Thane shouted as he ran past us. "Someone taught them how to cut through mountain magic." My stomach dropped. "That's not rogue behavior," I said. "That's coordinated." "Yes," Ronan replied grimly. "They're done waiting for you to choose." We reached the ridge as the first enemy wolves poured through the fractured ward line, 3 packs at once, banners stripped, scents masked, moving with military precision. War. The mountain roared as Veilcrest met them head-on. I didn't wait for permission. I stepped forward, and the world snapped tight around me. The first surge ripped out of me instinctively, a concussive blast that sent attackers skidding backward like leaves in a storm. My wolf surged to the surface, powerful and focused, lending strength without stealing control. I felt Ronan beside me, fighting like death given form. But it wasn't enough. They kept coming. "Lyra!" Ronan shouted over the chaos. "Fall back!" I saw it then, the strategy hidden in the violence. They weren't trying to win the fight. They were trying to corner me. My heart pounded painfully as realization hit. "They want me isolated," I yelled. "They want to force the bond in panic." Ronan turned toward me, and that's when the trap snapped shut. A null surge detonated between us, severing the wards and slamming into my senses like ice water. My wolf snarled in shock as the connection between us flickered violently. Not broken, strained. I cried out as pain lanced through my chest, not physical, but deeper. The bond stretched taut, screaming for resolution. Ronan staggered. "Lyra!" he roared. That was it. The moment waiting became a weapon. I stood in the center of the chaos, blood and smoke and shattered stone all around me, and understood the truth with terrifying calm. If I didn't choose now, they would choose for me. I turned inward, not in fear, in clarity. "This is my body," I told my wolf. "This is my choice." She surged forward, not to take over, but to stand beside me. I lifted my head and met Ronan's gaze across the battlefield. He felt it, the shift, the decision. "No," he growled, shaking his head. "Not like this." "I'm not doing this for them," I shouted back. "I'm doing it for me." The bond flared bright enough to hurt. I stepped toward him, power rolling off me in waves that sent enemy wolves reeling. My skin burned, not with pain, but with rightness. Ronan reached me in 2 strides, grabbing my arms, eyes wild with fear and restraint. "You don't owe me this," he said fiercely. "I know," I replied. "That's why it matters." I pressed my palm to his chest, directly over his heart. And I chose. The bond slammed into place, not violent, not frantic. Absolute. The world went still. Every sound dropped out as power surged between us, ancient, resonant, undeniable. My wolf howled in triumph as his answered, the connection locking clean and irrevocable. The mountain answered. Wards reignited in a blinding cascade, flaring white-hot as the bond sealed. The null field shattered like glass, the shockwave throwing enemy wolves flat. Ronan sucked in a sharp breath, forehead dropping to mine as the bond settled deep and complete. "I have you," he breathed. "And I chose you," I said back. The attackers broke then, not retreating, fleeing. The packs scattered under the renewed wards, terror bleeding into their scent as the mountain reclaimed itself. When the last enemy disappeared beyond the ridge, the silence that followed was deafening. Ronan pulled me into his arms, holding me tight for the first time. No restraint left to practice. Not possession, protection. I leaned into him, shaking as the aftermath hit hard and fast. The waiting was over. The choice was made. And the world would never look at me the same way again.
Chapter 20. What I chose to say out loud. I have led packs into blood and fire without my hands shaking. They shook when I felt the bond settle. Not because it was overwhelming, because it was right. Because the world had rearranged itself around a truth I had spent years refusing to name. Lyra chose me. Not the mountain, not the council, not fear. Her. The ridge was a ruin, cracked stone, scorched wards. The sharp tang of blood burned clean by returning magic. Veilcrest wolves moved with practiced efficiency, tending the injured, reinforcing the perimeter, reclaiming what had been tested and found unbreakable. I kept my arms around her while the world stabilized. She leaned into me like she'd always known where she belonged, without shrinking, without yielding an inch of herself. The bond hummed steady between us, not possessive, not demanding, balanced. "Still standing?" I asked quietly. She snorted against my chest. "Define standing." Relief hit me so hard it almost dropped me to my knees. The council gathered at the ridge within the hour. Elders, enforcers, watchers from Veilcrest, and emissaries from packs that had wisely chosen distance after witnessing what happens when you force a white wolf's hand. I didn't move away from her when they approached. I didn't need to. They could see it. The bond wasn't subtle. It never is when it's real. Power threaded clean and bright between us, no strain, no coercion. Just alignment. The eldest stepped forward. "Alpha Veilcrest," she said, "is the bond sealed?" I felt Lyra's breath hitch. Not fear, anticipation. "Yes," I answered. "By choice." A murmur rippled through the assembly, relief, respect, recalculation. "And the white wolf?" another asked carefully. Lyra lifted her chin before I could speak. "I am not a resource," she said calmly. "I am not a deterrent. I am not leverage." Good. I smiled despite myself. "She stands with Veilcrest," I said.
as my mate, as my equal. I felt it then, the mountain's response. Not thunder, not spectacle, acceptance. The elders inclined their heads. Then Veilcrest will hold, the eldest said, and the packs will adapt. That's how peace starts, not with applause, with recalibration. After the council dispersed, Thane approached us with a look that said he'd been holding something back for hours. So, he said, eyeing the bond with open fascination, you break half the mountain, terrify 3 packs, and wake up married? Lyra squinted at him. I didn't get a ring. I'll get you one, I said without thinking. She laughed, bright, real, a sound that cut through the smoke and exhaustion like sunlight. There it is, Thane said smugly. The alpha who thought restraint was a personality. Leave, I told him. He didn't, but he did grin and walk away. Later, much later, when the mountain finally settled and the night came quiet again, Lyra and I stood at the overlook where everything had almost gone wrong. She leaned against the railing, wind tugging at her hair. You okay? I asked. She considered it. I think so. My life exploded, but in a very organized way. I huffed a laugh. You handled it better than most alphas. Low bar, she teased, then sobered. You waited. Yes. You could have taken it, she said softly, when they came, when I was afraid. I could have, I agreed, and I would have lost you. She turned to face me fully. The bond flared, not hot, warm. I chose you, she said again, like she wanted the words anchored forever. I pressed my forehead to hers. I know. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a burden I carried alone. It felt like something we would build, deliberately, carefully, with the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout. Below us, Veilcrest breathed. Whole.
Epilogue. The right one was never late. I used to think fate arrived like a verdict. Loud, public, final. I know better now. Fate is patient. It waits until you stop begging to be chosen. The mountain is quiet this morning. Not the tense quiet of waiting, but the settled kind. Stone warming under the sun, wind threading gently through pine needles, wolves moving with the easy confidence of a pack that knows who it is. I know who I am now, too. I stand at the edge of the Veilcrest overlook, the same place where everything almost broke, and let the world breathe around me. My wolf is awake beneath my skin, white and vast and calm. She doesn't pace anymore. She watches. Ronan joins me without a word, his presence familiar in a way that still startles me sometimes. Not because it's overwhelming, but because it's steady. Chosen every day, not assumed. You're smiling, he says. I was thinking about Brightfall, I reply. He winces. That doesn't sound like a reason to smile. I was thinking, I continue, about how certain I was that being rejected meant I was wrong. I turned to him then. Turns out, I was just early. His hand finds mine, easy, unclaimed by urgency. The bond hums, warm and constant, like a shared heartbeat that doesn't need to be checked to be trusted. The packs still watch us. They always will. Legends don't get privacy. But fear has shifted into respect, curiosity into caution. The world recalibrates when something it tried to discard refuses to disappear. I am not a warning. I am not a symbol. I am a woman who chose herself and then chose the man who waited. Ronin doesn't cage my power. He doesn't soften it. He doesn't fear it. He stands beside it, which makes all the difference. The sun crests higher over the peaks, light catching in the stone, in the snow, in the quiet certainty of a future that feels earned instead of stolen. I don't belong to fate. Fate belongs to me now. And if you've ever been told you were the wrong choice, the wrong timing, the wrong girl, remember this. Sometimes the right life waits until you're strong enough to claim it. If you'd rise when the world tried to discard you, share this with your pack. And if you believe fate doesn't make mistakes, only timing adjustments, subscribe. There are more stories waiting in the dark.